What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 11 of the DGen Download. We've been talking about crypto. We've been talking about Bitcoin since the day one, and Bitcoin just broke all-time highs. Right now, I think it's sitting at like 110, 111, maybe even 112. And weirdly enough, it's like super quiet, right? You know, you don't hear people FOMO dumping. You don't hear people like talking too much about it. You don't see like the commercials with all the celebrities about Bitcoin. It's weird, man. Like we're at the highest level we've ever been, but it's almost like way quieter than when we were at 60 or 70 or 80,000. What do you guys think? What's going on there?
I think everyone knew this was coming. You go ahead.
You're absolutely right. I mean, halving, it was really the buzz. I mean, and this is when Bitcoin was in the 40s and 50s, and it was just nonstop talked about all over, all over the big news, all over the, mainstream media. And like people say, you could just search up the results of what are people googling, what are people searching, and right now it's at lows. If anything, like Bitcoin hit highs and we're sitting at lows, so that's very interesting.
Yeah, so I agree with Sam. I think Bitcoin is long overdue to be at the price that it is. I think we see at least 100K to K by the end of this year. I think people just are expecting it at this point. I think there's just been so much FUD that's happened. We had the FTX scandal. I realistically think a lot of this could have happened 2-3 years ago. There's just so many bad people in this space, unfortunately. And like you still see even like what was that, Mooncoin or whatever, CEO just got convicted of money laundering, and it's just over and over again there's all these scammers, and it's just a matter of weeding them out because there's a lot of really good people in this space too. And
Yeah.
I just think we're going to see this huge money transfer occur over the next 2 to 3 years. And, I think that we're going to see a lot of the other cryptos as well start to catch up.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it was manufactured, though, like you said, with the whole thing. Like everything happened, and people kind of got like fudded out and out of the market. And there's people who, after the Gemini collapse or after the FTX or this or that, like they kind of called it quits. So at that point, I mean, then these people are really. I feel like a lot more. There would have been a lot more of a wealth transfer from the rich to the poor if so many people didn't get constantly shaken out. And now, I mean, now people are kind of priced out. I mean, I don't
know
want to
if
say
that's true as much as the fact that, sorry, I just was going to say, like, I think the issue right now is that a lot of the asset classes that you like theoretically could make money in previously, like real estate or even e-commerce, people are getting very nervous of because of the tariff situation and then the potential housing bubble. So I think people are moving money into other vehicles that they see as having upside, like crypto, because crypto, like, say what you want, it's largely decentralized. Obviously, there's these whales that can, control the flow. But Trump has proven to be so volatile in some of these categories that crypto is one of the few things that, people feel like he's really leaned into and is onshoring as much as possible. And that's also why I'm still super bullish on both Bitcoin, Ethereum, obviously, because they're, pushing that forward. And then Trump's own cabinet, has put a lot of emphasis on Bitcoin, like David Sachs and the Treasury Secretary. And then Solana, I'm also still super bullish on. Solana is one of my biggest bags still in the crypto space. And Trump's own personal crypto coin is built off of Solana.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys bring up a lot of like really good points. I think just to take a step back, we've been talking about all of these types of topics since we started this, right? So number one, there's a separation between Bitcoin and all the other cryptos, in my opinion, right? Bitcoin is the original. Bitcoin is kind of the foundation for the whole kind of crypto currency, crypto asset ecosystem, right? And I think the issue and why we're seeing things so quiet right now is because fundamentally it has always made sense to own Bitcoin, a significant amount of Bitcoin, before you start buying like other coins, right? Especially if you're buying meme coins, if you're buying risky alts, utility alts, or non-utility alts, whatever they may be. It's always good to have. And my belief has always been you want the foundational piece of your portfolio to be Bitcoin. So a lot of people skipped buying the Bitcoin because when Bitcoin was at 10,000, no, it's at 10,000, I can't buy one. It's at 20,000 instead of 20,000, I can't buy one. 40, 80, now we're at 112. And it's becoming almost I think it's pretty much out of retail's ability now to be a whole coiner, like Sam was saying. So we're getting to the point where, and I feel this strongly because I've been very bullish on alts since 8 years ago. But unfortunately, we've seen a lot of alts either go sideways or go downwards. So while Bitcoin might be hitting all-time highs, we're only seeing a very, very small percentage of people actually reaping those benefits, because most retail investors are just dumping money into stuff on the Sol ecosystem, on the Base ecosystem, on the ETH ecosystem. And you say it's decentralized. I think fundamentally it is, but I think if you actually like start connecting the who owns these wallets, my personal belief is that Bitcoin is really, 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 really concentrated with some of the wealthiest like stealth people in the world. Like some people out in Puerto Rico, some people living kind of like, random places all over the world that you might not even know they might have, hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in Bitcoin, but they do, because they have like 75, 150, 250 wallet addresses. So I think that's always been
That's what
my
I meant
concern.
by decentralized, though, is that I think the stock market, the US stock market, is largely dependent on the well-being of the US government and kind of the US ecosystem, right? And we see these like things where like the demand for the bond market goes down and the stock market takes a big hit, right? So it's very dependent on like the US economy, the US stock market. Whereas with crypto, it's really not dependent on anything. Crypto is really the ultimate hedge against the US stock market, in
Yeah.
my opinion. And I think we've seen this very strong synergy, right, with the stock market and crypto, and we haven't seen that divide yet. So like you could say that my thesis is wrong theoretically, right? But I think that in the perfect world, crypto does not follow the US economy. We see a world where crypto decouples from the US economy. And I think we're starting to move in that direction because Bitcoin is recovering. It has obviously recovered in synergy since the, tariff downturn, but, now it's even exceeding it, very similarly to gold.
Yeah.
So I think as we continue to see this trend unfold and we see people get continued confidence, and we also see the lack of confidence theoretically in Trump and his kind of what you could call not craziness, but back and forthness, right? I think people will continue to kind of flow into Bitcoin and other cryptos.
Yeah. So I would disagree, and then I would also agree. So it makes sense that the US stock market is obviously correlated with the US economy, right? That's just logical. I think Bitcoin is definitely related, and crypto in general, but specifically Bitcoin is definitely related to the health of the US dollar, to the health of the US economy, to the health of the global financial system. The reason I say that is Bitcoin was created out of the ashes of 2008, the financial crisis. It was created as kind of a new form of money. If fiat currencies worldwide, but it's mainly the dollar, it's the most important one by far. If those currencies weren't devaluing, weren't debasing, and the deficits weren't growing for a ton of reasons that we've already talked about many times and we don't have to go into, I think the correct value for something like Bitcoin would be almost nothing. Because what is the purpose of owning Bitcoin, an asset that produces no income, that produces no dividends, that produces no place to live, nothing, if the US fiat system isn't like necessarily inflationary? So it's kind of like a hedge. If a dollar today is going to be the same as a dollar in 10 years and 10 years before, there would be no need for Bitcoin. It's a totally like useless thing. And that's why I do have like a sliver of hope. Obviously, this is why I think the perfect hedge is, you have stocks, you bet on the US economy, right? You have some Bitcoin as the foundational piece of your crypto portfolio. You have some alts and things like that to ride kind of any crazy waves. And then, if the government is able to get their spending under control and the country becomes super healthy, then your stock should be in a great position and crypto might not be performing as well. If it can happen, which seems like is probably what's going to happen, then crypto might overtake and actually become like the perfect hedge. So that's kind of how I think about it. But I definitely think it's related just because of like we're in
I
a
also
system
think
that's
though, like
unsustainable.
we need to recognize where people feel like they're going to always have the most upside with their cash. Like a lot of this is Las Vegas. And I think a lot of people, try to add theoretical value. And we even talk if certain stocks are inflated. No, even though Ben lost all his money on the, roulette table in Vegas.
Not all of it. Not all of it.
Very close. I made like $10 left. It is really roulette at the end of the day. I think a lot of the market is roulette, and everyone wants to put their money, on the number that's going to be called for that ultimate payout. And everyone has a friend of a friend who made, 200x on Shiba Inu coin or 100x on whatever. And no one ever validates those gains. But crypto right now does seem like the highest upside. And that's why we always swing back into these situations of ATHs on Bitcoin or other cryptos, because it's in Michael Saylor's and all these guys' best agendas to basically say that the moon is the limit, right? The sun is the limit of what Bitcoin can be, because it's almost like a self-affirming thesis, right? When they say, oh, Bitcoin's going to be $1 million or $10 million or $100 million. It only benefits them because even if it doesn't reach that, it leads them in the right direction. And no one wants to be caught in the situation where it does actually go to $1 million and you were caught on the sidelines losing all your money like Ben on the roulette table.
Yeah, it's FOMO inducing, and the funny part is, like, it doesn't even matter, right? Whether they really believe it or not. Maybe Michael Saylor believes and maybe he doesn't. At the end of the day, if he can sell you on the vision that, hey, Bitcoin's going to go to 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, and you're over here with nothing, you're going to pump his bags. And again, that's why I say, like, the only reason Bitcoin has any value, the only reason any of these cryptos, mainly Bitcoin, have any value is because there's so much uncertainty and because we're seeing a fiat currency get devalued. If tomorrow inflation was zero and we knew it was going to be zero for the next few years, I guarantee you Bitcoin would go down to $10,000, $5,000, maybe even
Well,
less.
we've seen so much
But that's not
inflation
going to
even in
happen.
our own lifetime. I think that's something that a lot of people forget too is, our parents used to be able to buy all their groceries. They go to the supermarket, buy all their groceries for $5. $5 was a lot of money back then. Now you go to the grocery store, you can't spend less than $100. A thing of eggs is costing, $12, $13 in Los Angeles. You fill up your gas, depending on what kind of car you have, it's costing, $60 to $100 just to fill up a tank of gas now. But
Yeah.
that's because of inflation, and I remember when you could fill up your tank of gas and it was $30 or $40, and now it's $100.
I would
And
say,
that's
I would just say gas is actually one of those things that's like not as inflated as value as some other things. That you just look at like education for whether there's private, any kind of private like school, right, K through 12, but then also especially universities and housing. Those have gotten so insane. But again, inflation is, just what happens when you run insane deficits, right? We are spending trillions and trillions of dollars. And again, I've said this before, my low end estimate is 20 to 40% of that is fraud and waste. And the sick part is, there's millions and millions of people benefiting from the fact that all of our purchasing power is being devalued. And my only response to that was, there's not that much I could do apart from start hedging and start going all in on risk on assets pretty much. Because risk on assets like Bitcoin, like crypto, like general cryptos, like high growth tech, that stuff will keep pumping. So it's kind of like an unfortunate spiral that we're in, because I would love if like my bags keep getting pumped, but at the end of the day, I just don't feel great. Just to wrap this thing, I don't feel great if like that's at the expense of like the health of the nation's economy, like kind of getting out of control,
Yeah, and I'm just thinking out loud. I think for the listeners, right? It's a good thing to say, like, how do you make the most money right now? Like, how are we making the most money right now? And obviously, we can go around and say that, which I think would be helpful for the listeners. But right now, my personal opinion on kind of what I'm doing is I still have the majority of my investment in Hood. I still think Hood is ultimately undervalued with the roadmap that they have. I think they're going to become a bank. The credit card's going to roll out much more heavily. I think betting contracts is going to be huge. There just seems like they're firing on all cylinders. They still have a number of events coming up throughout the rest of the year. But I see that as a play with crypto. And I really like how Hood moves when crypto goes up because they ultimately benefit greatly in terms of profit based on the volume of crypto transactions that occur on their platform. And then I have a really good investment into Hood, and I'm also holding pretty sizable bag of various cryptos. So right now I'm holding probably about half of all my crypto in Solana, which I still, feel is really much backed by the administration. And then I also recently bought Pepe coin and Popcat based on the low that occurred during the tariff announcement. But I still think those coins see, relatively good upside and bounces on their lows. What are you guys, buying right now, just quickly, or what are you doing or recommending? And this is not financial advice, right? This is just what we're
this is
doing.
definitely
You
not
can choose what
financial
to do with it.
advice. Everybody's got to make their own decisions, what's best for them. But yeah, right now I would say with crypto, 97% Bitcoin, still buying. Yeah, I mean, listen, I have my it's really just Bitcoin, some ETH. And that's because like it's actually pretty funny. When I first started the whole crypto, this was like I don't know a couple years ago already. I think ETH was under 1,000, and I was like, man, I'm just gonna buy ETHs. Like, man, I think Bitcoin was probably like maybe 25 or 30. I was like, man, I'm not gonna be able to buy the whatever at first, and then I just started buying like ETH. Like I would try to like buy like however much ETH I could, and then ETH was actually outperforming Bitcoin. Well, this was a while ago. It was actually outperforming Bitcoin, and then I finally was like, I don't know what made me switch. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just swap all my ETH for Bitcoin, and it kind of just like when I really learned more about crypto and I really kind of got like orange pilled, as we like to say. Um, and then I just went all in on Bitcoin, and then of course with the occasional, Benji roulette over there would say, hey,
G roulette.
check out this meme coin or that meme coin. I mean, I would say most of them went to shit. I mean, listen, that's meme
what
coins. It's
happens.
gambling. But that's the whole that's the whole thing where that had to have that whole experience where
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, I'm not gambling. Like in
Yeah.
either in meme coins or in real life, like I just don't gamble anymore because it's just like in the long haul, it's just like a really like net negative, just a bad way. Like it's just like if you really think about it, and then what makes me say that is these meme coins. I was like, Ben, I could just play. I could just play fucking Crash. The fucking Crash game on stake, and have the same. Maybe I hit a 10x. Maybe I hit. I've seen people hit 1,000x on Crash. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then some people as soon as think, and that's literally happened. Like I've literally been on the phone with Ben. He's like, "Yeah, man, I think this is a good buy." I'm not even joking, Dakota.
Listen to this
I'm
guy.
not even joking, guys. Clip this. Clip this. It's we're on the phone for 15 seconds. He's like, okay, I'm gonna buy. Should I buy it? Yeah, I'm like, he's like, okay, I'm just gonna buy it for you. Within 10 seconds, yeah, man, we're down like 95%. I'm like, bro, there's no way. Like, how that?
Yeah,
High
people should
risk.
never be buying those. In my opinion, I don't think there's any money to be made in these really
Here's
low
what I'll say. I gotta
coins.
step in. I gotta step in. So
Ben's gonna defend. It's like Diddy
I'm
on
not
trial.
defending meme coins. I'm
Diddy
not
on trial.
defending.
Diddy, what do you have to
No,
say?
Nah, ain't
yo, put the
no Diddy
baby
here.
oil
No
away.
Diddy.
Got the baby oil.
No
He's
baby oil,
innocent.
no
It's
Diddy,
never
no
happened.
Meek Mill in the pool, none of that. So
Yo,
I'll say
whoa.
this. Listen, in 2024, in 2021, meme coins were completely different from when they are today. Meme coins early in 2024 and 2021 were actually tied to relevant cultural events. You can find an interesting meta. You can find like something like Moo Dang. You could find something like Brett. You could find something like Ponky. Any one of these, right? And some of those I've owned.
Honky.
And those will increase in value. You can expect those to increase in value as the meta becomes more and more interesting. So as Mudang become more and more famous, the baby hippo, the coin started increasing. What happened right as Melania coin launched was that the whole industry was kind of fiduced because we had there was always bad actors, always scammers, always ruggers, there's always shitholes, bad people in there, but they became super, super, super impactful and started rugging 9 and 10 figure projects like it was nothing. And once that happened, it went from like, it was always player versus player, but it went from a good natured player versus player to rat poison player versus player. And that's, I haven't been buying memes since all that happened. I mean, it just became totally derelict. Maybe it goes back to the way it was, but with Pumped Up Fun printing $650 million last year, there's not a lot of money to be made unless you're an insider. That being said, if you want to do with a tiny bit of capital, I do with a very, 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 very small amount of capital relative to my portfolio. Some hit, some don't. It is what it is. That's the game. To answer the initial thing that you asked, Dakota, what I'm buying, I am a net seller right now. I've been net selling since the beginning of May. Not a lot, I mean, I'm constantly rotating, investing full time. So I'm looking at these things every day. I was net selling still some stocks that I think are getting like overvalued. A lot of like European companies that Europe has performed super well this year. What I'm buying, I actually did take a fairly big, whatever. I added significantly to my year Treasury ETFs. So the 20 years hovering right around 5%, give or take. And unless, like, here's the thing: if we see the 20-year go to 6%, the economy is like in an insanely bad position. So I think it's more than likely that maybe we rise up maybe 5.4, 5.5, maybe 5.6, and then I'll keep buying and buying and buying more of the 20-year ETF. But it's more than likely that we end up having the 20-year go back down closer to 4. So that's kind of like a swing trade / hedge on the ultimate economy. But I continue to buy good things. I bought Google, fairly recently.
Damn, homeboy's taking the quickly thing to the opposite approach of quickly.
Haha, hey, it's not so quick. Listen, man, I got
Guy takes the long road to the answers.
Well, okay, I mean, I'm buying a lot and I'm selling a lot. So
Before
long
the
story
audience
short,
falls asleep, let's move on to a different topic.
Let's talk about the Diddy case right now. I mean, it's in the headlines. What I'm hearing right now, allegedly, everything we say obviously is allegedly, all speculation.
Allegedly.
We don't have any insider information in the courtroom. But
Except
what
for
I'm
our
hearing
people.
is the artist Kid Cudi just got on trial because there was an attempted murder on him. Diddy attempted to blow up his car because he was speaking to Cassie, the woman that's involved in the trial, the one that was, with Diddy, involved in a lot of the
She was
parties.
with Diddy though. She was Diddy's quote unquote girl.
Yeah.
And then,
they were involved in those felonious
freak
acts.
offs.
In the
freak offs.
We call them the freaky freak offs. And it's so funny. You know, my favorite thing is every single body is like, well, yeah, man, no, Diddy was there. As soon as as soon as the baby oil cracked open, I hit the door. I was out of there. Like I didn't stay. I didn't go into that room.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Like, they didn't know what was going on.
Everybody was at the party, but nobody went in those rooms. Nobody was.
It's a bunch of weirdos for sure out there.
Yeah, these people just get so desensitized from everything, and they end up in these weird situations. But the one thing I will say is, like, you got to give Diddy credit to some regard of how he did so much stuff in every single day. Because they're saying in the testimony that this guy had time to run, one of the most leading record labels ever to be created. Guy came from the streets, has time to manipulate and coerce and to, get with all these women and men and, go to these charity events all in a single day. It's like for us, getting out of bed and checking the stock market and doing a few things, I'm already ready to, take a nap. So I don't know. I'm like, how is this guy accomplishing so much? That's the only upside.
Hat? You guys ready for the tinfoil hat? There might be 3 Diddys that's actually out there, and we only know about one of them. Only one of them's in jail. The other 2 are running free.
He's a 3. Made a clone of himself.
No, I'm just making that up. No, here's what I say. Listen, these guys are guys like Diddy. I mean, listen, he's built different in the sense that, like, one, obviously he's a weirdo. He's probably a criminal. He's probably a bad guy overall. I'm not defending him, but yeah, he's productive. Is he taking a bunch of drugs every day to stay like super awake, super alert, like super on the money? I don't know. I would bet yes, but I don't know if we're gonna find that out. Probably it'll come out in the.
No, they said he was. So according to the testimony, they had drugs that would keep the women relaxed and able to participate, in the freak offs, and then the men, like him, would take various prescription drugs to keep energized. And that's what essentially allowed for his level of productivity and for these freak offs to go for 3 or 4 day acts. And to what Sam said previously, there's the car bombing allegation with Kid Cudi, which is pretty crazy. His Porsche was bombed in his driveway and Diddy supposedly broke into his home. And Kid Cudi called Diddy a Marvel supervillain.
Yeah, I saw that.
As part of his testimony.
Wow.
There's these freak offs, they have videos of these various assaults that Diddy did. They have the one in the hotel, which most people have seen at this point.
The Cassie one.
Yeah, with Cassie. And you have to wonder what's wrong with this lady. And then the craziest thing is Diddy, she cheats on him. She cheats on Diddy, whatever you want to call it, cheats or spends time with Kid Cudi. And then Diddy goes to her parents and demands $20,000.
Yo, I didn't even hear about that.
Your daughter, I spent all this money on her. You owe me money because of basically she cheated on me and he got his money. So this guy is all about his money. At the end of the day too.
Bro, that's insane. You know what's crazy? I feel like, man, like I remember as a kid, 10, 15 years ago, and I would like watch movies and I would watch TV and I'd be like, I feel like I could do that shit. Like I could definitely be an actor. I could definitely be a singer, definitely be a rapper. And I'm not saying that I could. I'm not saying that I couldn't have. But unfortunately, like the way it works is there's so many like talented people out there. And like really the way to put your finger on the scale is to kind of like have one of these guys, whether it's Diddy whether it's Harvey Weinstein, whether it's like probably dozens, if not hundreds of other people in that business, to like, you do stuff with them, right? Because you got 1,000 people that equally sing as well, like as you, like what gives you the edge? You got to have that something, whether it's like a family connection, personal connection, or, a lot of those personal connections are made in that way. So I think it's like a really effed up industry, really messed up business, and it's personally like super sad to see, because you have all these like wide-eyed, like super talented, super like ambitious people going to either get into the music industry, the film industry, what it may be, and a lot of them get taken advantage of, and honestly, a lot of them, know what they're getting into. So, but you still don't want to be defending people like Diddy or Harvey Weinstein. It's just a totally inappropriate position for them to be in,
Yeah,
and to be
it's a
taking
difficult
advantage of people like that.
situation, right? Because
Yeah,
I mean, on the one hand, if like there's a agreement where it's like, hey, I've worked really hard to be where I am, you're Diddy. And I'm not saying this is right, but I'm saying this is like a hypothetically less bad situation would be for Diddy to be like, I worked really hard to obtain everything I have. And like if you want to have access to that, like I'm a freak. And like if you want to
yeah,
have what I have, like you gotta be willing to freak too.
yeah.
And it's gonna entail XYZ.
Bro, of course they said that. That's a given, bro.
No,
Bro,
but I don't think it's as given as we think, though. I think a lot of this stuff is unspoken.
like every mob wife, where they were having the diamonds and the nice fur coats and the nice Cadillac and the nice house and everything. They were happy, everything was good. And then when there was trouble in paradise, they don't know where it came from. They didn't know what he was up to. I don't buy it. I don't listen. She
Yeah.
You're
watched.
probably right. Yeah, that's a
She
fair opinion.
based on the court filings, she was at like it wasn't him puppeteering her and the dudes and the girls. It was more like him and her were doing the puppeteering of the people together. Like it was like a couple.
Yeah, it's
I
like
think it
the
was like a
Epstein
couple thing.
Maxwell thing almost. Like it kind of gives me that vibe.
No, it was more no because she was literally for the
She
specific
was more the
purpose.
mob wife situation. I agree, where it was like everything was fine while the getting is good, and like they get all the prizes of being in that situation. But obviously, it comes with these, the exploitation and whatever. But there's a lot of upsides. So they kind of let it happen. But then, and the cards start to fall, and they see an opportunity to become famous off of his downfall, or the cards already falling. You might as
Yeah.
well get on the right side of history. That's when they come out and say, "Oh, we didn't know anything about it." But I will say one thing I'm very interested in still in this trial is what's going to happen with all these big celebrities, like the really big names, like Jennifer Lopez,
It's
Justin
Jay
never gonna
Bieber,
come
Z,
out. It's
Jay
probably
Z.
never gonna come
Jay
out. They're gonna
Z,
keep it hush hush.
Beyonce, like these names, DJ Khaled, like these people that you saw consistently alongside Diddy, who have entered a whole different stratosphere, what we call like the triple A list celebrities, have been able to keep themselves almost 100% separated
Yeah.
from this trial, which I find almost despicable, as part of our justice system, that these people almost either have paid off the dues to not be included in this rhetoric,
Yeah.
or whatever it is, but it just seems like there's a separation there.
It's how it works. Listen, guys, like think about it this way. Justin Bieber is one of the like top celebrities in the whole world ever, right? He was I'm saying allegedly, but people, I'm 99.9% sure like sexually abused by these guys. Like probably when he was 14, probably when he was 15, probably when he was, through most of his life while he was like in that business. Let's be real. Justin Bieber, the number one male singer in the world, like for I don't know, a decade. These people, they insulate themselves, right? Like you have rules, man. Like it's not even our society, it's the world. It's just the way the world works, and the US is fairer than most places, but like you have rules for like for thee, right? And then you have, rules for me, and then that's also split up into like the levels that you're in, right? If you're on our level, we're not getting any of these benefits, we're not doing any of that crazy weird shit, but we're not getting any of those benefits.
I'm
If we
just
were, we're
wondering
not,
how it
not
works
connected like
though,
that.
right? Does Diddy's lawyer go to Justin Bieber and
I
go,
think it's just
"Hey,
implied.
I'm going to not bring up anything from what's happened between us, and based on that, it's going to cost you $5 million. And if you
No,
want me
I
to
don't
not
think.
say anything about you and you agree not to say anything about me, that's what it's going to cost." There has to be some type of
Yeah,
agreement there. I
I
do
think.
not personally
I
believe
mean,
that there's no type of communication. They both know to say nothing, because Kid Cudi came out and is testifying against Diddy.
yeah,
Certain people have chosen to basically scorched earth Diddy,
yeah,
whereas other people, he's intentionally not saying things and they're not saying things against him. I
yeah.
can't believe there wasn't a signed piece of paper that says it's this much money
We
and
can
it's
only
gone.
speculate. I think, again, whether it's signed or unsigned, I think there are agreements, whether they're implicit or explicit. And I don't know, right? Like, I'm pretty sure Biebs was abused, bro. Like, I would bet a ton of
But
money on that.
or did some abusing himself,
But
right? I don't think that's
here's the
fair enough
thing.
to say like
Yes.
he's engaged with prostitutes before. He's been
Yeah.
shown to be like
Yeah.
reckless in his decision
Yeah. Yeah.
making. I do not think for a minute that that
Here-
kid is
Here's the perfect
squeaky
guys.
clean.
For anyone here running a blackmail operation, just giving you some tea. When you're on a blackmail operation, you want to get blackmail on everybody, right? So the person you're blackmailing, you want to put them into like multiple other compromising situations, so that, like, say Justin Bieber was, say the person you're abusing, you want to put into compromising
That's a
situations.
very
So,
good
like,
point.
so it's like, say you're abusing person A, right? You want to get person A to abuse person B, so that if person A ever comes after you, you'll say, "Hey, I've leverage on you. Like, you take me down, I'm taking you down." And most people, like, they just don't want to risk it. Like, you look at, again, I'm not saying that's what anyone did. It's all allegedly.
I think it's
Maybe
exactly what
doesn't want to deal
happened.
with it, but that
But
is
I
the
would bet
smartest
money
way of
that
doing
he
it.
has evidence on Jennifer Lopez, Justin Bieber. I bet he has a lot of incriminating stories and facts. And if he goes down on one of their stories, against
Yeah.
him, he's already going down. What does he have to lose by taking them down with him?
Well, that's the thing. I think that the only reason that shit hasn't hit the fan is because he's still fighting the case. People have beaten worse charges, so there wouldn't be any point to burn all of Hollywood down right now.
Yeah.
But say it does go the wrong way, and I'm talking about he can get a life sentence for everything. I mean, if everything gets hit with the Rico, Schmiko, everything, then we might see a suicide. We might see a slip and fall.
Yeah. We
And
might see somebody hang themselves in a
yeah,
maximum
we might,
security prison.
or the whole straw house gets taken down because, like Ben said, everybody's connected. But it goes so high to the top where they're gonna take him out. I mean, listen,
Yeah, they're
we're
gonna have to
talking.
take Diddy out if he
What
starts
had happened?
talking.
What happened when they got Epstein? Man, we got it. We're about to find out every last person and what happened. Now he's dead. Even that's another thing we could like. I mean, we're probably wrapping up on time soon, but the last thing we should talk about, because it's related, Cash Patel and Dan Bongino, they just changed their whole tune. They said that they went from a 100% saying that there was no way that he killed himself to they both repeated that oh no, he killed himself, which I'm very skeptical.
There's no way.
I'm a fan of both of them, but listen,
You know what?
I don't believe it. I'm not buying it.
I'll
That's my take.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
my
just jump
take.
in real quick. Like, man, like, it's hard for like us and anyone listening to imagine this, but imagine like almost like getting the secrets of the universe, right? Like, you get this, you're in there, right? And you see like the files that are like actually classified, and you start realizing how deep things go. I just feel like, man, if you blow the lid, and again, nothing against Cash, nothing against Dan, nothing against Trump, nothing against any of these people, but imagine you're the person that has to blow the lid on something this big, and you totally destroy like the fabric of society. So it's almost as if, imagine like people knew there were aliens, right? And it's like, man, like, how can we even tell people? We're just gonna keep
You
it under
really think
wraps.
they get in a room though and they're like, okay, here's what happened. And they're all like, whoa, that's what happened. He killed himself because he knew XYZ thing, like Clinton, da 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 da. Like, you don't think there was a world where Trump would love to burn the bridge with the Clintons and like
No,
all these people?
no, because
Like, I
again,
just
at
can't
the end of the
imagine what the
day,
thing is that they obviously can't say that he like that someone didn't kill him, because they obviously could come out that like someone from the top killed him. I don't know, but I just don't know what's that thing that Trump wouldn't love to announce that would hurt the
no,
Democrats or
man,
whatever.
I just don't know. Like, again, we're just speculating. I just don't know. But imagine, like, think about it this way, right? The most high profile person in federal prison, I think it was in federal prison, is assassinated with cooperation of like federal employees and the SDNY and whoever else. Like,
Hanging yourself
that
is also pretty
destroys.
hard, dude. Like, if you have to like
Yeah,
hang
bro.
yourself, you need like a legit like thing to like tie around your neck, and then you need to
And the
like
cameras are
jump,
out.
and then you need to like have your feet basically be like suspended high
Yeah.
enough so
The
that like you
security
basically
guards,
die. And
not,
this guy
not to,
doesn't want to die. This guy is a rich guy still, theoretically can like from prison have book deals and this and that, and can do a lot of stuff, to spread this information. And his life's already in
guys.
jail.
There,
Like,
there are literally examples of people dying with 2 gunshots to the back of the head that have been deemed suicides. Like, we're past these things being like, maybe that happened, maybe that didn't. There are literally confirmed autopsies. Death by 2 shots to the back of the head, death by multiple stabbings in the chest, ruled a suicide. Like, this is just what happens, man. The world is a scary place.
I will say, like, and this might get me assassinated, so like whatever, like it is what it is. But I still think that this affirms that Trump is still willing to play into the cronyism of
100%,
the political
100%.
system. And
Yeah,
I
of
think
course.
and that's obviously why he got all of his cronies, you could call them, into the White House. And he's been doing a good job. I'm not going to say he's not been doing a good job. And I think you do need to kind of have your cronies in the White House to, impact the change.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like what Sam said, with them basically saying that Epstein offed himself, it's just a matter of the same cronyism. They said they were going to release, the list. They never released the list. They released like this fake list of his phone book. They just changed the topic of the conversation when it fits them best. And now everyone's moving back to the Trump, agenda, which is, we don't want to spend time on the Epstein thing. He killed himself. We're moving on from this topic, and we don't really care. They said they were going to release the, JFK assassination stuff, and then they're going to, have this whole rhetoric about that and what really happened. And that's a big part of why, Trump got elected, was, that he's going to change the way DC is run. But then we see it reverting almost back to the exact same system where we're not privy to, the true information.
I'll say this again, people watching this can understand our political affiliations and who we support and what we think. But at the end of the day, there is no outsider that becomes president, right? Like, Trump was an outsider relative to the Skull and Bones members before, you know what I mean? But like, let's be real, guys. Like, you have like legitimate dynasty people, like the Bushes, like the Clintons, like all those kinds of guys, right? And then you switch to, again, a New York billionaire, who's a guy, I don't think I've said this on the podcast, but Donald Trump's uncle or great uncle was the first person. He worked with Nikola Tesla. He was the first person to go inside Tesla's workshop after Tesla died. Like, this isn't some random guy from Queens off the street, This is a real, like, connected person. And again, I'm not saying like this is all a conspiracy and everything, but again, there are no outsiders getting these positions of power. And unfortunately, we saw the big, beautiful bill, which is the name, which I really like. But unfortunately, I don't love the bill because it looks like it's actually going to be adding significantly to the deficit. And, when you have things like Doge, you have things like, we're coming in, we're going to cut government waste. And when I start seeing like, oh man, that's not going to happen, I think that's really the reason why crypto started rallying so heavily, because people realize like, hey, like, it's more of the same. It's better than what we had before. Like, the unlimited mass immigration was, I think, a total like suicide pact. So it's good that that stopped, and maybe we'll hold off the suicide for by 20 years or 30 years. But we're kind of not going down a good pathway. And I don't think there's anyone who's really in the know, who's really affiliated, who will actually do anything about it. So I guess we all have to just like, live life, enjoy every day, and maximize returns, because we kind of know the direction things are going.
Do we want to cover it all on the Johnny Ive stuff or no?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, Dakota, give us a little bit of a preview on that.
Yeah, just super quickly, I think this is pretty noteworthy that Johnny Ive, who is the principal designer for Apple under Steve Jobs, had worked at Apple for a pretty long time, even after Jobs' death. And then he didn't really necessarily have a falling out with Tim Cook, but I think there was a disagreement of kind of the direction Apple was headed. And, the compensation package that Ive was looking for just wasn't really on the table. Some people would say that was a pretty big blunder from Tim Cook, but Tim Cook is, a strictly financial guy and just didn't really feel like they needed, Ive within the, organization at that time. Ive decides to start his own consulting design group and then starts their own startup, which is pretty common among agencies these days to kind of start your own startup within the agency. And then just this week, and it kind of goes silent. Not a lot of people are paying attention to Johnny Ive over the last couple years. It's announced that Sam Altman from ChatGPT, OpenAI, is buying the company that Johnny Ive founded for $6 billion in an all stock deal. And that OpenAI stock is worth quite a bit of money. It still has a huge amount of upside. That's a very, very big move. It's I think the largest acquisition by OpenAI to date. And it's a wearable AI product. So it's basically almost like a little puck that has a camera on it that's going to allow ChatGPT, theoretically to, interact with the real world, which I think is pretty amazing, right? And I think that shows that Microsoft is firing on all cylinders. Microsoft would have to, basically allow this type of deal to go through because they're one of the most prominent shareholders of OpenAI. And I just think it's a huge move that it almost makes me want to invest back into, Microsoft stock at this
Hey,
point.
don't get Sam excited, man. Sam is the Microsoft guy.
Damn, I'm a Mac, I'm a PC.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of good stuff's going on with the wearable. Like I was watching the interview and how he's describing it. I mean, it could be like a revolutionary, it could be like an iPhone moment, you know. And yeah, like you said, Microsoft is really firing on all cylinders. They have the OpenAI, they're building out their infrastructure. Also huge, the build. I don't know if any of you guys watched the build conference for
No.
Microsoft. Now they're partnering with Elon Musk's Grok, and XAI is now going to be on Azure, as well as a bunch of other models. And it's just, they're really revolutionizing the AI space. And I feel like people really had to see the vision because the stock was lagging for some time while they were really heavily investing into something with, at that point, had absolutely no revenue to prove it. So it was a huge bet. And I think that now in the next 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to be a huge payoff. It's going to be a huge payoff.
Yeah.
And I
That's
think
my
what's
personal.
interesting is you still see Google doing actually a very good job with Gemini, but
Yeah.
executing hardware is very difficult. Like real world hardware has not taken off. You have Meta with the glasses, which I think is probably the most successful thing to date with the Ray-Ban Meta glasses, where you can basically record in real time. It's really for content production right now. Snapchat has been trying to do the VR glasses with spectacles for the last 15 years unsuccessfully. The stocks basically slid either down or straight, for the last 8 to 10 years, which is pretty insane. And then now, you have OpenAI, which I think will be like probably could arguably be the first successful foray into this field because you have what I think is really interesting technology. You're going throughout your day, it scans what you're doing, it gives you insights based on your environment, and that could integrate into glasses. I think there are other problems on the horizon, though, for Apple. We see the 25% tariff that Trump threatened today against Apple if they don't move production into the US, which is obviously a huge undertaking. They already diversified production into India, so I think they've kind of followed
Yeah.
Trump's rhetoric, but it does show that Trump has almost taken a stance against Apple for some reason and Tim Cook. And I
Yeah.
don't really know where that stems from.
Yeah, that was a little bit surprising to me. I mean, again, our iPhone's gonna be made in America. I just don't think so unless we get robots to be able to do it. But no, back to the OpenAI portion and the Johnny Ive acquisition of his company. Really, just him and a lot of it was just buying Johnny Ives almost. Man, we're in such a weird space. I get feelings of like 2021 hype here, 2020 2021 hype where there's so much money. Like again, I think people are realizing, and we've talked about this, on previous episodes. AI is endgame. It's a potential endgame. It's potentially the flywheel that allows for everything to work out, right? So AI is going to be. It's already a game changer. It is going to be the game. So I feel like everyone is throwing as much money as possible. Numbers that don't even make any logical sense right now. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how OpenAI went from a nonprofit to a for-profit company. I think Elon and I are still like super confused about it, but it doesn't matter. It's happening, and OpenAI is now like making giant acquisitions. Obviously being bankrolled by Microsoft. I think again, is it worth $6.5 billion? I have no idea. I think at today's value, absolutely not. I think 3 years from now, probably not. 5 years from now, probably not. In 10 years, once the flywheel goes to a crazy level, and maybe we're seeing it produce hundreds of billions of dollars in value, maybe. So it's really hard to say. I think Sam Altman is obviously extremely forward thinking. I remember watching his like class maybe like 7 or 8 years ago on like how to start a startup, and I kind of can't even believe that he is now the guy. There's still something about him that I think is, I don't know, I can't wrap my head around it. It's a
He's
little,
definitely
I don't trust
sketchy. Like
him.
no
Yeah.
one would look at that guy and say this guy is not a little squirrely or sketchy. Even people that know him,
Yeah.
I've never seen. I mean, I'm pretty tapped into this tech space. Not that I'm like part of it, but I listen to a lot of podcasts and YouTube videos. We all go on Twitter. We all follow these people. Not one person ever goes, "I love this guy. I hang out with this guy." Right? He's very much the lone wolf, say what you want about him. He's obviously a genius, but he just gives off like an untrustworthiness based on his relationships and friendships. But
yeah,
he's obviously a master. Apple's unwilling to pay Johnny Ive what he feels like he's deserved. And, you look at these NBA players, or even baseball players getting, $300-400 million contracts, and then Johnny Ive, asked for the pay package from Apple, which is worth $3 trillion, and they can't pay the guy, like what he's actually worth, which is like a huge headline for Apple to say that, he's coming back. He's going to lead the AI charge for Apple. He's going to, make AI products that bring them into the future.
Yeah.
And then, OpenAI just comes along and pays him in like paper money stock, gives him, this huge package, and it's a huge headline. It makes them look like they're on the forefront. And you know what it does to Apple? It makes them look like an old fart.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah, I think
genius.
Apple is the leader in hardware, and I think them not. It's insane to me that they're not leading the hardware space. Again, Microsoft is my biggest single stock position by far now. I used to be pretty close to Apple. I've sold like half of my Apple, actually probably like 60 or 70% now. It's still a big bag, but yeah, it's just interesting. I think they have to make a comeback, right? And I think they will right when everyone starts sleeping on them, which I feel like we might be doing right now, but I think the stock price has to go a little bit lower. And then they'll come out with something crazy. You guys can clip this, 6-12 months from now, Apple's going to come out with something different. We've been working on this in stealth mode, and it's going to change the game. I just find it hard to believe that Apple,
I'm skeptical,
which led the world for a decade in hardware, is now lagging so far behind. And they probably are, but they have to be if they're thinking the way I'm thinking, which I think is the wise way of looking at it, they have to be going kind of like all engines on. We need to build some amazing hardware because we know how to do this better than everyone else. But AI it's a crazy space. I mean, stuff doesn't have to make sense. We were saying right before we started recording, every day I'm seeing a new 30, 40, 50, $60 million round for some random AI company that is kind of doing a little bit here and a little bit there. So it's going to be a free for all. It's going to be a wild time, but I'm excited. I'm excited to be watching, and I'm excited to be participating to some extent. But that's it for me. Dakota, Sam, let me know if you guys want to say any final words before we wrap this up.
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
No,
awesome.
I just think, hopefully, we get some exciting news from the Diddy trial this week, and Sam.
We'll be keeping our eye on it.
We'll be following up. I wanna do a quick plug. Everybody, if you've been enjoying these episodes, I want you all to go to the YouTube, hit subscribe, go to the Spotify, hit subscribe, give us 5 stars on the podcast players, hit us with a like, share this with your friends on the other platforms. We really do this because we want to put out some good information. So appreciate everyone listening. We will catch you all next week. Adios.
Take care, guys.